Welcome to another edition of Scaling Up, where we bring industry thought leaders to talk about marketing effectiveness and how to grow quicker. And welcome back, everybody, to another great episode here. We have an exciting edition with Erica Seidel, the founder of The Connective Good. Before I bring her on and introduce her more formally, I just wanted to remind you that we're sponsored by the Growth Ops community, which is a professional network focused on aligning marketing, sales, and customer success to deliver excellent customer experiences in order to drive business growth. We're a community where growth ops professionals can connect with one another, align on best practices, and foster personal growth. With that, I would love to bring Erica onto the show. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you, John. Always good to see you.
Great to see you as well. And I gave a brief introduction. Obviously, I know you for a while as kind of the expert in the retained recruiting side of CMOs, but maybe you could spend a few minutes talking about the company that you founded and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I run an executive search practice called The Connective Good, and the tagline is recruiting the make money marketing leaders as opposed to the make it pretty marketing leaders. And that does tend to resonate, with clients and with candidates. And so that's been my focus, kind of where marketing and analytics and tech and data come together. And primarily lately I've done a lot of searches for growth stage companies, whether PE funded or not, but companies that are kind of at this what got you here won't get you there stage and looking to hire their next marketing leader.
That's fascinating. I've been myself as a former CMO, I find that fascinating. And you're writing a series right now that I think we wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about today about CMO tenure. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think back of my own experiences as a CMO, where I've been a CMO in public and private companies for 10 years. Some of them worked out really well and some of them didn't. I'm curious, what kind of trends have you been seeing in terms of those CMO assignments, and maybe some that you've even mentioned in that Forbes article?
Yeah, so the trend is, of course, that a lot of CEOs, when they hear that they see that somebody has a short tenure, that is a big question mark. And if you've had one blooper, that's fine. But the biggest gap I get when I present a candidate is, oh my goodness, why was this person only a year there and 18 months here and 9 months there? Throw them out, we're done. But the reality is that sometimes there are very good reasons for why somebody has had a short tenure. And so my series is about kind of, looking at the various reasons why somebody could have a short tenure. And then my upcoming piece, which is not out yet, but it's about what should you do if you are getting nervous about a candidate, whether CMO or more junior, who has short tenures. And it's not just throw the baby out with the bathwater, not necessarily.
Is there anything that, from a preventative perspective, like I'm trying to think, you're kind of seeing, you're the expert at kind of that initial onboarding, sourcing and onboarding from my perspective. Of course, once you get there, there's a whole nother survival strategy. But I've noticed even trying to onboard myself on the other side, it's typically not a marketer. So are there any strategies that you find that are effective that help kind of ensure or prevent the either early rejection or early, or ensures the survivability a bit from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two. So one is having a really good conversation on trade-offs. And so for instance, I just got off the phone with a new client and, they want, I always like to say 11 out of 10 requirements. And, so we had this honest conversation where I said, well, what if somebody has done this growth path of whatever, 15 million to 100 million, but they don't have your precise industry experience? How would you feel about that? What if somebody had everything you want, but not global experience? It's a global company. And we had this criteria matrix and the CEO filled it out. And then the other two, like head of sales and general manager person filled it out. And so that helped as a vehicle for kind of anticipating those trade-offs, but also being able to just have those conversations about those things. The other thing that I do often with a CEO is saying, okay, let's do a research interview. Before we start the actual recruiting, let's do a research interview where you can kind of warm up for the recruiting and talk to somebody who could do this job. Maybe they're not in the right geographic area and they're not going to get hired, but there's somebody who could give insight into the job spec. And often that person would say, well, you really want a lot. Or, you know what you're asking for will take 5 years to do. So moderate your expectations for year one. There is an alignment framework. You'll see it in the Forbes CMO network piece that I did, where the biggest challenge with CMOs not lasting in their jobs that I found is a misalignment between the CEO expectations, CEO expectations, CMO responsibilities, and then furthermore, their authority and their resources and their incentives. So if any of those things are a little off, you're gonna go, you can go haywire. I mean, things can go haywire for a lot of different reasons, but that's one of them.
Yeah, and I would agree with you violently on what you're saying there. I've seen that firsthand where it's all about expectations, right? The clearer you are up front on both sides of the table. A CMO, I think, has the responsibility to bring some of these questions forth as part of the interviewing process to make sure that they're doing the diligence to kind of reduce that risk. And I could see you as a placement individual, you too would want to kind of work through that. And I think I think you listed 6 or 7 different reasons why CMO tenure may be short, and misalignment was your number one aspect.
Yes.
So in your upcoming series that you're going to be talking about, maybe tell us a little bit about what to expect in that second part of the Forbes piece.
Yeah. So if you are hiring somebody, whether it's a CMO or somebody more junior, and you are a little concerned about the short tenures, one thing is to just examine it for yourself. Are you worried about how it looks, and how it looks to whom? Is it your investor that you're worried about? Is it about the team internally? Is it about that press release that's going to go out? Is it that you're worried that the person hasn't learned enough in their job? Sometimes a person has had a short tenure because they got done what they needed to get done in a short amount of time. I always ask people, would you rather have somebody with 10 years of experience doing the job in a really uninspired way? Or would you rather have somebody with 2 years of experience doing it in a very innovative way, getting the job done, and then outgrowing it and doing something else? So that's one thing. And then making sure that you kind of seek out a pattern. I always like to ask candidates for every job move that they've made, going back even like 10, 15, 20 years, what were the push and pull factors? Why did you leave, and why did you go to a new place? And then talk with them about the patterns. It's common that somebody has, especially as they get further into their career, a couple of, a blooper here and there. But it's really when you see a pattern over time that you can get concerned. I think the other thing that you see, and maybe you've seen this, John, in your experience, is somebody could be at one company for a long time, and then they go to a new company and they misstep. That new company, they only stay for a year or less, and then they're on to bigger and better things. And so I would almost be more concerned if you're talking to a candidate that has been at a company for a long time versus a short time. And it's kind of like the way I put it, I'm working on an analogy for this, but like if you've always been in weather that's 72 and sunny, like Los Angeles, you're not going to have the vocabulary to talk about, Alaska and blizzards and, things like that. And, poor weather in Chicago, for instance, so if you've always been in a culture for the last 10 years that has worked for you, you might not have the ability to talk about cultural match, cultural fit in as nuanced a way as if you are just coming out of a poor cultural fit.
Yeah, I totally agree. We've seen that where I've seen kind of big company CMOs get injected into a small company environment. Of course, they've got the big company name, so everybody gets excited, but they realize once they get there that it's not quite the fit that everybody had hoped for. And so kind of what you said, the large tenure ends up flaming out quickly, and really no fault of the CMO. It's just kind of just wasn't quite a fit as part of that process. They get enamored with other things in the interviewing process. Maybe it just kind of in closing, in terms of questions on the CMO tenure side, is there any one piece of advice that you would give to, let's say, maybe even aspiring CMOs that are trying to get to that from point A to point B, especially in this environment, right? We're now in a very different environment than we were at the beginning of the year. It wasn't that long ago. So is there any one piece of advice that you would give to the audience members of how to get that or secure that opportunity with, if assuming it's the right fit? And that's a critical piece. Is there any one piece of advice that you would give there?
If you've had short tenures, try to explain why in your resume and LinkedIn profile as much as possible. Maybe it's, the company moved headquarters. Maybe it's the company got acquired. That's a good thing. Maybe it's you got recruited out. Yes, I will ask in an interview, but I might not be the one interviewing all the time. And make sure that you can kind of tell the story up front and realize that it might hold you back if you have shorter tenures that are not explained. The other thing that I always like to see is what's the from to. So a company might want to find somebody who's done what we call the climb from, 50 million to 200 million. They want the scaling person, in consonant with the theme of your show here. And so a lot of CMOs and marketing leaders don't do that off the bat. So talk about your experience in terms of that from to, and it's not necessarily just revenue, but I went in and the company had a team of 2, and now it has a marketing team of 10, for instance. Revenue was X, now revenue is Y. Churn was X, now churn is Y. It sounds obvious, but sometimes people just don't get there as fast as I think it would be helpful for them to get there.
Makes a ton of sense. And just kind of transitioning here in terms of what you've seen business environment wise in this post-COVID world, have things improved in the last 60, 30 days? Do you see that continuing? Like what are you seeing right now in terms of executive level searches and needs, especially with companies that seem to have kind of contracted at first? Are they looking to expand now, or what do you think will happen?
Well, I can only talk about what I see and who has come to me. And I will say that things did contract for, April, May, June, a little bit. It was nice to have a little bit of a break. Some searches were put on hold, but now that we're at the end of the summer, the phone has been ringing quite a bit more, and I've had to turn some searches away. I had one search that I didn't have the bandwidth to do, so I called up another search firm that I know and trust, and they said, "Oh, we don't have the bandwidth either right now." And so, again, this is anecdotal, but I think it's fairly positive, at least from where I sit.
Yeah, I love the optimism. Definitely love the optimism. And how about free time as we wind things down here? What I think you said you have a new alcoholic friend there.
Well, I have a new furry friend. Cosmo, come here.
Oh,
you want to be in a video? No, okay. He doesn't want to be on a video.
Too bad.
Shy. With this new Cavalier King Charles puppy that is absolutely adorable, and whenever we're taking walks, he will go for these little nips that are like on the city streets, and I think he likes the sauce.
That's excellent. Well, I'm sure that he's not chewing anything that's of value yet, like a remote or.
He's all about vices. He's all about vices. So he gets the cigarette butts. So we tell him he has to stop smoking and stop drinking. It's a lot of fun though.
Excellent. Well, Erica, really appreciate you making time. I know how busy you are. So thank you. I will look for the next Forbes piece, and we'll continue on with that other Forbes piece that you wrote. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, John. Take care.
And that wraps up this week's edition. If you like what you heard, we'd suggest you like and subscribe to our video. Thanks for listening.